What is going on, Dodgers Nation? Today we are shifting the spotlight a little bit, because while so much of the attention around baseball right now has been centered on established stars and big league expectations, there is always another layer to this game. There is always that next wave. And when you start digging into organizations around the league, especially teams like the Toronto Blue Jays, you realize there are a lot of names flying under the radar that could shape the next few seasons in a major way. Over the last week, most of the conversation has revolved around the clear headline prospect, the kind of player who feels almost inevitable. Trey Savage has been that guy. He is the name people keep circling, the one projected to move quickly, the one many believe will not even be considered a prospect much longer once this season wraps up. There's a sense that his spot on the big league roster is not a matter of if, but when. And when you have a player with that kind of trajectory, it naturally pulls focus from everyone else in the system. But here's the thing about farm systems. They're never just about one name. They are layered, unpredictable, and often defined by the players who develop a little slower, who adjust quietly, who refine their games in ways that do not always grab headlines in spring training. That is where this conversation gets interesting. Because beyond Savage, there are several players who could realistically factor into the Blue Jays' plans over the next 1 to 3 seasons. One of the more intriguing names is R.J. Schreck. He may not have the same buzz as Savage, but when you look at the timeline and the current roster construction, he feels like a player who could legitimately force the issue. Originally projected to be ready around the 2026 season, he is now entering a stretch where strong performances could accelerate that plan. What stands out about Schreck is not just the bat, but the defensive reliability. In an organization that clearly values run prevention and athleticism, that matters. Making a highlight play in spring training might not guarantee anything, but it reinforces the idea that he is building trust with the coaching staff. Then there is Ricky Tiedemann, and this is where the conversation becomes more complicated. Not long ago, he was viewed as the crown jewel of the system. Electric stuff, frontline starter potential, the kind of left arm you build around. But development is rarely linear, especially for pitchers. Injuries have interrupted his momentum, and now the question is less about talent and more about durability. Because as gifted as he is, none of it matters if he cannot stay on the mound. For Toronto, the priority with Tiedemann likely remains health and innings management. There is little sense in rushing him into a bullpen role if the long-term vision is still as a starter. Yet the clock in professional baseball never fully stops, and each season without a full workload adds a layer of uncertainty. Shifting to the infield, JoJo Parker brings a different type of intrigue. Drafted 8th overall in 2025, he represents a long-term investment. At just 19 years old, he is at the beginning of a process that could take several seasons to fully unfold. The projection right now points toward a major league arrival around 2029, assuming development stays on track. And when you look at the contract timelines of current infielders, that estimate is not random. Ernie Clement's contract situation and the future of other middle infield pieces create a potential window where Parker could step in. There is still debate about his ultimate position. While he has played shortstop, some evaluators see his frame and arm strength translating better to third base. At 6'2", with clear athleticism and a strong throwing arm, the tools are there. The organization will likely allow that positional question to sort itself out over time. What matters now is repetition, growth, and adjusting to the professional game. 19-year-olds rarely dominate every level on pure talent alone. They have to learn situational awareness, pitch recognition, and the mental grind of a full season. Another name that generates curiosity is Orelvis Martinez. Once considered one of the top prospects in the system, his stock has fluctuated. That alone is a reminder of how volatile prospect rankings can be. One strong stretch can vault a player into the top tier, while setbacks or inconsistency can cause a slide just as quickly. The same can be said for players like Jake Bloss, who, after being acquired with notable expectations, saw his trajectory alter by injury. A procedure like Tommy John surgery changes timelines in a significant way. It does not eliminate potential, but it demands patience. And that is the underlying theme in all of this. Prospects are projections, not guarantees. For every player who transitions seamlessly from the minors to a starring role in the majors, there are several more who encounter obstacles, adjustments, or simply plateau. Even someone like Addison Barger showed that growth at the big league level often comes with visible growing pains. Mental mistakes on the bases, defensive lapses, those are part of the process for young players stepping into the highest level of competition. When you evaluate the Blue Jays system as a whole, it becomes clear that the organization is balancing two realities. On one hand, there is a competitive window right now with the current core. On the other hand, there is an effort to build sustainability beyond that window. That is why players like Johnny King and Arjun Nimala remain important, even if they are years away from meaningful major league contributions. Nimala, still very young, experienced an uneven season, but development at that age is rarely smooth. The sample size is small, and the physical and mental adjustments are ongoing. It is also worth mentioning Juan Sanchez, an international signing who is just 18 years old. That kind of signing carries excitement because of the upside, but also a tremendous amount of uncertainty. At 18, so much can change. Physical development, swing mechanics, defensive refinement, all of it is still forming. Calling him a future top 100 prospect might be fair based on tools alone, but the journey from toolsy teenager to polished major leaguer is long. Ultimately, when looking at this group, it makes sense to temper expectations. The most realistic impact players in the immediate future appear to be names like R.J. Schreck, Trey Savage, and possibly Ricky Tiedemann if health cooperates. Others may see brief call UPS, a handful of games here and there, depending on injuries or roster needs. But expecting a wave of 22 or 23-year-olds to transform the roster overnight ignores the reality of how development works. Spring training always fuels optimism. A few strong at-bats, a dominant inning, a highlight defensive play, and it is easy to imagine immediate stardom. But organizations know better. They understand that polish, consistency, and health are what ultimately determine who sticks. And for Toronto, with limited roster flexibility and a competitive core already in place, the margin for error is slim. That makes the development of these prospects even more critical, not just for the next few months, but for the shape of the franchise over the next several seasons. When you zoom out and look at where the Toronto Blue Jays stand as an organization, the context around these prospects becomes even more important. This is a team that believes it is in the middle of a competitive window. Over the next 4 to 5 seasons, the expectation is to contend, not rebuild. That reality shapes every decision involving young players. Development is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening alongside a core that is expected to win now. We have seen how quickly eras in baseball can feel like they are closing. At one point, there were real questions about whether the departures of key veterans would signal the end of a run. Instead, the Blue Jays managed to retain foundational pieces like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Alejandro Kirk, stabilizing the heart of the roster. But even with that continuity, change is inevitable. Contracts expire. Performance fluctuates. Injuries alter plans. That is why the pipeline matters so much. Take someone like Arjun Nimala. He may not have dominated statistically in his most recent season, but the tools remain compelling. At around 20 years old, he is still in a developmental phase where physical growth and experience can dramatically shift his trajectory. It is easy for fans to lose patience when numbers dip, but front offices often look deeper. Bat speed, plate discipline trends, defensive instincts, these are indicators that do not always show up in headline statistics. If Nimala refines his approach and tightens up defensively, he could reinsert himself firmly into the conversation as a future infield option. Johnny King represents another interesting case study. As a young left-handed pitcher with projection, he embodies both the excitement and uncertainty of the minor leagues. A strong season could propel him into broader national recognition, possibly even into top 100 discussions. But pitching development is fragile. Velocity gains, command consistency, and health all have to align. One setback can slow momentum. On the flip side, One breakout stretch can change the narrative entirely. Then there is the constant reminder that prospect status is not permanent. Yindrai Rojas, once considered a valuable asset, was left unprotected and exposed to roster mechanisms that reveal how organizations truly prioritize their talent. Jake Blas, who arrived with significant expectations, saw his path altered by surgery. Orelvis Martinez, who once sat near the top of internal rankings, now exists in a more uncertain space. These shifts underline a simple truth: farm systems are fluid. It also highlights why it is risky to overvalue prospects at the trade deadline. Every season, teams debate whether to move young talent for established big league help. Fans grow attached to rankings and upside, but front offices understand that many of these players are, in reality, lottery tickets. Some hit, many do not. That does not mean development is meaningless. It means that patience and perspective are required. When discussing immediate impact in the upcoming season, the list narrows quickly. Trey Savage feels like the most obvious candidate to cement himself at the major league level. His college experience and advanced profile make him more polished than the typical rookie. RJ Schreck could push for meaningful at-bats, particularly if injuries create opportunity. Ricky Tiedemann remains the wild card. If healthy, his talent is undeniable. If not, the organization will likely proceed with extreme caution, focusing on building innings rather than chasing short-term bullpen contributions. Adamako is another name worth examining carefully. There's always temptation to shift a young starter into relief to accelerate his path. But for a player who has dealt with prior injuries, stretching him out in Triple-A and allowing him to log consistent innings may be far more beneficial in the long run. Organizations rarely abandon a starter projection unless absolutely necessary. The ceiling of a rotation piece outweighs the immediate boost of a middle reliever. Position players like Charles McAdoo illustrate the learning curve that often separates minor leaguers from major leaguers. Hitting in spring training can create buzz, but base running instincts and defensive awareness are just as critical. Being caught in avoidable situations or misreading game flow can quickly erode trust. These are not fatal flaws, but they reinforce why refinement matters. At the big league level, the margin for error is razor thin. One misstep can swing a game. It is also important to acknowledge how much the Blue Jays have evolved defensively over the past few seasons. There was a time when outfield defense and situational execution drew criticism. Mental mistakes were more common, and it cost them in key moments. Since then, there has been a clear emphasis on tightening fundamentals. That shift creates an even higher bar for prospects hoping to break through. They cannot simply hit. They must defend, run intelligently, and minimize mistakes. This is why expecting a 22 or 23-year-old to step in and immediately perform like a seasoned veteran is unrealistic. Even the most talented young players endure growing pains. There will be moments of brilliance followed by stretches of adjustment. The difference between staying and being sent back down often comes down to how quickly those adjustments are made. The broader question, then, is sustainability. Can the Blue Jays maintain competitiveness as current contracts expire and payroll dynamics shift? That answer depends heavily on how many of these prospects develop into reliable contributors. It does not require every name on the list to become a star. It requires a few to become solid, everyday players, a few to provide rotation stability, and perhaps one or two to exceed expectations. Juan Sanchez embodies the long horizon view. At 18, he is years away from any meaningful role, yet his signing represents a bet on future upside. International prospects often require the most patience of all. Cultural adjustments, physical maturation, and gradual skill refinement all factor in. If he ascends in a top 100 territory, it will likely be because incremental improvements stacked consistently over multiple seasons. But before we move forward, don't forget to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest news about the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the news, so drop a comment below. Whispers are heating up around Major League Baseball as one of the most tantalizing trade rumors in recent memory begins to circulate. Sources close to the league suggest that the Los Angeles Dodgers are aggressively pursuing a blockbuster deal for Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. While nothing has been officially announced, insiders claim that talks have reached an advanced stage, hinting at a trade that could shake the league to its core. For months, the Dodgers have been exploring options to bolster their outfield, searching for a player who combines elite speed, defensive prowess, and the potential to change games with a single swing. Buxton, known for his electric range in center field and uncanny ability to steal bases, fits that description perfectly. Despite struggles with injuries in recent seasons, his talent remains undeniable, and many executives believe that if healthy, he could redefine Los Angeles' lineup. The Twins, on the other hand, are rumored to be open to a significant shakeup. With a roster in transition, they may see this as an opportunity to acquire multiple pieces in return for a star who carries both high upside and high risk. League insiders suggest that the Dodgers are ready to offer a perfect package, one that could include a mix of top-tier prospects and major league-ready talent. Such a trade would not only elevate Los Angeles' immediate championship hopes, but also position Minnesota for long-term depth and flexibility. Fans have taken to social media in droves, speculating on the possibilities. The allure of pairing Buxton's blazing speed with the Dodgers' formidable lineup is almost too tempting to ignore. Imagine him patrolling the outfield with laser-like precision, turning would-be hits into outs, while simultaneously pressuring pitchers with the threat of the stolen base. It's a blueprint that could transform the team overnight, assuming Buxton can stay on the field consistently. Of course, skepticism remains. Buxton's injury history is well documented, and some analysts caution that betting the farm on a player with his track record carries significant risk. Yet, rumors persist that the Dodgers believe the potential reward outweighs the danger. If the deal goes through, it would instantly become one of the most talked-about trades in recent memory, dominating sports headlines and fueling debates across the baseball world. While official confirmation has yet to arrive, the excitement is palpable. A move like this would signal that the Dodgers are fully committed to pushing every chip forward in pursuit of a championship, while the Twins would demonstrate a willingness to reshape their roster strategically. For now, fans and pundits alike can only speculate, but one thing is clear. If this trade happens, it will be impossible to ignore. Byron Buxton to Los Angeles? The whispers say it's closer than ever, and the baseball world is holding its breath. That's all for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay up to date with exclusive news about the Los Angeles Dodgers, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We always appreciate your comments and feedback. See you in the next video.